President, your first 100 days has far exceeded that of any other presidency in this country, ever, ever. Never seen anything like it. Thank you. Your directive to me was very simple: make America safe. Since you have been in office, President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media, 258 million lives.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. Donald Trump is only powerful because people give him power. The ultimate expression of that, of course, was his election as president when 77 million Americans gave him their vote. But what we are seeing now is the morphing of a once proud political party into a movement that exists solely to grow Donald Trump's power. Say what you will about conservatism and the Republican Party, until Trump, it was based on underlying principles. It was never just about a single person. That is now gone. The Republican Party today is a cult of personality. If ever there was a cabinet position that needed to distance itself politically from the president, it was that of Attorney General. That's a role that often requires investigations of the executive branch. To hear Pam Bondi fawning over the president in this way isn't just cringe-inducing, it's truly alarming, because it signals that there's no one left in the executive branch to rein in an out-of-control president. As bad as his first term was, there were at least individuals around him willing to check his worst impulses. But he learned from that, and anybody with the courage and integrity to tell him no is now gone. In the first part of my interview yesterday with David Rothkopf, we talked about Trump's casual disregard for the Constitution. In this second part, we talk about the people around Trump who not only sustain his autocratic impulses, but who increasingly depend upon them. Here's our conversation. Do the functionaries around Trump know that they are doing that, or are they just reacting in the moment, almost viscerally anticipating Trump's desires? That's one interpretation. The other is they want a third term, or at least Trump's heir apparent to be guaranteed. They want the kind of regime that will inoculate them against any accountability for their assaults on the Constitution and the rule of law. Is it thought out, or is it just this animalistic thing where they are responding to the alpha that they need to please?
I think it's a toxic cocktail of responding to a strongman, responding to the strongman because it benefits them, as you implied. You know, if they're close to him and he's the big boss, they can get in on the grift, or they can have the kind of power they've never had in their lives. And so, as long as he, is in power, they are in power. That's all. You know, I mean, we saw that in the Biden administration, right? There were a lot of people around Biden who were like, "Oh yeah, no, we can't consider the possibility that perhaps he ought to consider stepping aside," because they would have to step aside, right? And
but that's a different proposition altogether from transgressing the law, knowing that you won't be held accountable because the dear leader is going to protect you forever. And that's the implication here.
What I'm saying is that there is this toxic mix. Some of it is that they believe stuff. Some of it is self-interest. Some of it is the kind of world that Trump puts around them. And there is another component of it, which is, say you're Pam Bondi, and you are turning the Justice Department into a tool of repression in the United States. The deeper you get into that, the more dangerous it becomes for you for norms to return to this country.
That's what I want to talk about.
Right. You know, and I think that is something that, they all face. Now, I think they're all like, well, Trump's going to pardon us and this won't happen, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Trump's about Trump. Trump's old. Trump could drop dead tomorrow. There's a whole lot of scenarios in which these people could be left holding the bag, and a new sane administration comes in, let's set aside whether it's Democrat or Republican, just that it respects the rule of law. And these people could end up in the slammer. That, furthermore, I mean, just quite apart from that, they could just end up in disgrace. Their public life. They've hitched their wagon to the worst possible star, and it's going to pay a cost unless they retain power
forever.
And right. But that creates, I mean, that's the whole Trump thing. Why did Trump run again? You think he wanted to be president? No, he didn't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
He sought power to avoid accountability. It's a vicious circle, and it is becoming more vicious all the time.
Are you surprised at how many otherwise apparently upstanding public servants are willing to subordinate their integrity, their dignity to this project? Think about Marco Rubio 5 years ago versus yesterday. It is shocking to me how willing people like him are to do this.
Look, anybody who takes to Twitter for 4 years with Bible verses every day, I'm like going, okay, what's he covering up? You want to believe in the Bible, great. But taking to Twitter to do it means you're trying to project something, not that you actually believe something. And because what could be more superficial than presenting it out on a social media platform? Marco Rubio has no character, and we have seen that Marco Rubio, not too long ago, a few days ago, supported giving up land to Russia that was in violation of a law that was written several years ago by Marco Rubio, right? I mean, the guy is, and he's not the only one, but they keep doing it because to do otherwise puts them in line for retribution, and also because they don't have the character to do the right thing.
Yeah, it ultimately boils down to that. They don't have the character of their convictions or convictions, period. The last part of your Substack is a roadmap, how we capitalize on these outrageous actions, missteps of Trump and his administration in his first 100 days. You write, he's old, he's on his last legs in this life, and like all narcissists, has no concern for a world without him in it or for anyone else. And that includes many of the people around him. While there is danger lurking in each of these flaws, there is also opportunity. How do we capitalize on that opportunity?
Well, I think Trump has given us the roadmap. Trump has reminded us that bullies only respond to strength. Trump has shown that if you capitulate, if you bend the knee to Trump, he will go for more. He will take it as an invitation to do more damage to you. Look at the law firms that bent the knee. Look at my alma mater, Columbia University, that bent the knee. Look at countries that bend the knee. In each one of those cases, it's the worst thing you can do. So don't do that, right? We've learned that. But look at the people, look at the countries, look at the institutions that have stood up to Trump. They have all benefited. And in many cases, he has caved. Who holds the whip hand with Trump? Well, we know the markets do, because we've seen 3 separate times in the past 100 days instances where Trump was going to do something with tariffs or get rid of the Fed chief. And the markets went crazy. Treasuries crashed, the market crashed, and Trump backed off in 24 hours. Harvard, after a faltering start, stood up and said, no, you don't. We, who have produced more lawyers and judges than any other school in the country, we're going to come after you. You can't do this to us. And Trump started backing off of that. China said, you think you hold all the cards, buddy? We're the number 2 purchaser of treasuries. We are your source of rare earth metals. Everybody in the world wants to deal with us. Nobody is going to turn their back on us. We can live without you. You can't live without us. And Trump is beginning to say, well, oh, no, we could do a deal with the Chinese. That, that's going to be fine. Everything will be fine. I think in that we see that the path forward. Who are the Democratic politicians who are doing well right now? They're the ones who stand up, speak the truth plainly, and say, we're going, we are not going to stand for what Trump is doing, and we're going to do whatever we have to stop it. J.B. Pritzker, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, Jasmine Crockett. There's a whole bunch of them where they've done that, and they are, benefiting. We're benefiting from that. Other Democrats who are sort of listening to a consultant and going in and saying, well, let's meet this guy halfway, but have not thought through that, meeting a fascist halfway gets you to a halfway fascist society. Those people, whether it's Gavin Newsom or more recently, to my deep chagrin, Gretchen Whitmer, I think they're doing real damage to themselves and to the Democratic Party. And so I think we need to follow that message too. One final point that I would make on this, as far as the Democrats go, is I keep hearing people in the media going, well, the Democrats can't just be against Trump. They have to be for something. And I'm like, what the? Just wait. I mean, John Kasich, it was the other day, was saying this on MSNBC. What are you talking about? Everybody knows what the Democrats are for. The Democrats are actually for not destroying the economy. They're for growing it. Democrats balance budgets. Republicans don't balance budgets. Democrats create social programs to take care of the disenfranchised. Republicans destroy those programs. Democrats are for the rule of law. Republicans are against the rule of law. Democrats are for strong national security. Republicans have undermined our national security and embraced our enemies. I can go, and what's more, if you look at the American people and you say, do you like Trump's policies, or do you like rational gun control? Do you like education reform? Do you want health care for everybody? Do you want the environment to be protected? Guess what? 2/3, 75% of Americans support those things. What Democrats are for, the vast majority of Americans are for. So the Democrats don't have to back off, don't have to apologize. They just have to own who they are and stand up to the fascist threat and call it a fascist threat.
Yeah, I'm with you and J.B. Pritzker on this. And you left out of your list of countries that have stood up to Trump the nicest country in the world, which just humiliated him, Canada. If you hold firm, he backs down. He looks like the fool that he is. And I think you're right. Democrats have more cards than they think. As Americans learn more about what the Trump regime actually means for them, it's going to crumble.
I totally agree with you. And, he's gone after several nice regimes. Danes are pretty nice too. And they, go to Greenland. And around the world, you want to do well, stand up to Trump. Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico stood up to Trump. She's doing better. Mark Carney, as you say, in Canada, his party was down 25 points to the Conservatives 3 months ago. He just won. Europeans who stand up to them, doing well. China gaining stature in the world. I did a column today. I do a column every couple of days for the Daily Beast. And I did a column today on the winners of Trump's first 100 days. And the vast majority of the winners of Trump's first 100 days, they speak Chinese. Because China has done great as we pull back USAID, pull out of international institutions, undermine the idea that we stand for something in the world, embrace our enemies, turn on our allies, weaken our economy, stop having people come to the United States to study, undermine science, undermine research and development in this country. Who benefits from that? Nobody benefits more than the People's Republic of China.
We're going to have to leave it there, David. Thank you so much. We'll put links to the Substack and podcast below. We'd love to have you back.
Love to be back. Thanks a lot.